the order that we close modules in, the rule of thumb, I'll let you talk about it, but the rule of thumb is from the bottom up. But
yeah. So what Sage recommends is, you close modules from the bottom of the launcher to the top. And so if you look at the order we've got here, purchase order, sales order, inventory down through general ledger, and then you look at your Sage launcher, which we can look at in a minute, we're actually starting at the bottom of the module tree and working our way up. The reason that's recommended is because you want to, and we have customers that will close some of the more detailed modules, the last business day of the month, but they want to leave like accounts receivable open for a couple days while they reconcile, that type of thing. And because each module is closed separately, you can do that. You wouldn't want, you want to close the modules at the bottom because they post to modules going up the tree. Like the purchase order module posts to inventory, and it posts it to accounts payable, and it posts up to the general ledger module. The sales order module posts to accounts receivable, and it posts to inventory, and it posts up to the general ledger module. So if you were to run the period end or the year end for, the accounts payable module first, and you had that in 2024, but your PO module was still in 2023, and someone posted a transaction into 2023, it wouldn't allow it to post up through accounts payable because that's already closed. And so it's not really required. If you do it in reverse order, it's not going to break anything. It's just a recommendation if you're going to maintain your modules in different periods that you start at the bottom of the tree and work your way up. And so that's really kind of what you're what you're seeing on this tree. If you do them all, at the same time, it doesn't matter. Work top to bottom or bottom to top. It doesn't really matter. A couple other, points on this slide, and we talked about this on a previous slide, but there's no period end or year end processing task for bill of material, work order, RMA, bank rec. That's why you're not seeing them on this listing. But if you use those modules, you want to make sure that you've processed all the transactions in those modules through whatever period you're going to close. So if you use bill of material, that does write up to inventory. And even though there's no, period end process, year end process in bill of material, you want to make sure you've entered all your production entries in bill of material for the month of December before you start closing the month of December in inventory, because here again, it won't allow you to post to those other modules because they're integrated. So no period end on those, but make sure you're done with all your work in those modules. So there are some other tasks on the period end menu, and we're going to show you here in a minute, but there are some other tasks on the period end menu within the modules that are period end tasks that should already be done at the point that you get to, actually running the year end period end task inside of Sage. Things like if you use commissions, the commission reporting and accounts receivable is on the period end menu. So there are some other tasks that are on that period end menu that should be run. They just put them on at this point, but they just put them on that menu kind of as a reminder. Hey, before you run the period end, make sure you've kind of done all these other things and tied everything out. So other point on this is there's an option when you run period end, year end processing to print the period end reports. We just recommend that you don't do that, because here again, at this point, you've closed your books, you've run your financial statements, you've run all of if you run an AR trial balance and an AP trial balance and an inventory valuation at the end of the month as support for your general ledger balances, that should all be done. This is just kind of a formality in the system. And so to just generate that paper as part of the process, I've never really understood why they put that where that's at. Your report should be printed at this point in time. So we just recommend that you just deselect that when you run the process. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Share my screen. All right, so we're back in our demo system, and I'm going to just start with, keep it simple, we'll go to accounts receivable. So within the accounts receivable menu, you can see I've got my period end menu here. And this is really what I was referring to with those other tasks. So in accounts receivable, maybe you use finance charges, you print customer statements, you use the commission reporting process. All these other things should be done at this point in time, but they're there just as a reminder that, they're kind of part of what you would normally do as you close the books for the period. So I'm in accounts receivable, I go to period end. This is actually then where the process is run, period end processing. And I wanted to show you this. This is an example of a warning message that you're going to get, but it's going to allow me to continue to run this process. So that's just telling me that I've got unposted invoices in sales order invoicing. Here again, the reason that's important is if I'm trying to close the, try to close the year for 2023, and I've got some invoices in the sales order module for 2023. I want to update those before I run this. Otherwise, I will not be able to update them without reopening the module. So you can see I click OK. It's still going to allow me to do it, but it just gave me the warning. So when we get to this screen, other thing I wanted to point out, it's going to tell you what period it's going to close. So my accounts receivable period and year-end processing will be performed for period 12. My accounts receivable module is in period 12 of 2025. So it's just confirming, hey, you're going to be running the period and the year-end process because that's the last period of the fiscal year for 12 of 2025. This is the period end reports option that I was referring to. So I would just recommend you turn that off. You click proceed. It's going to ask me again. It's going to say, hey, period 12. It's going to be changed automatically to period 1 of 2026. Have you done everything that you needed to do? Do you want to complete it? I say yes, and that's it. That's literally how quickly the process runs. And then what's happened kind of behind the scenes is it took care of the data, the history purge, anything that it needed to clean up in terms of history retention. And if I go into accounts receivable options now, it's automatically advanced the current fiscal year to 2026 and the current period to period 1. So that automatically happens behind the scenes. Now you can't process transactions into period 12.